Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of WeDeyCode. Today, we're speaking with Balogun, who recently implemented a very beautiful new design of the popular Zikoko mobile app by Uduak on Twitter. And so, what we're doing is going through Balogun's implementation in React Native and just finding out how he did it and how others can follow his footsteps as well. So I'll give the floor to Balogun to just give a brief introduction about himself, his passion for coding, and how he discovered this Zikoko UI.
Hi everyone, I'm Balogun Wahab, a software engineer. Um, I currently major as um, I currently major doing front end. Yeah, so using Vue and React. Yeah, so I'm mostly comfortable with anything JavaScript that has documentation actually. Yeah, so about the design, I saw it on my TL and it was beautiful. So I decided to put it to life. Sometimes like that, I see design on my timeline, but most of those designs don't have their Figma link attached to them. Yeah, so I just move on, and then since it's not something I don't bother asking the designer the link via their DM. Yeah, so I do this once in a while too, not with only mobile app, could be web app too. Yeah, so I have one other design that I've implemented one time on my GitHub also.
Cool, awesome. So I guess one lesson there is for designers who post on Twitter,
Yeah.
they should add the Figma link. Okay, so how did you choose a tech stack?
Definitely because it is the stack that I am most comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially why I've checked Flutter one time, but because I already know how to do React Native, I don't have the need to learn something new yet. So I recently also checked Swift for iOS, Swift UI, but for the same reason why I didn't proceed even learning Flutter in the first place, like to avoid the Stack Overflow thing. Yeah, so I didn't bother. I just felt when the time comes, if there's a need for it, I'll learn it. But for now, I'm most comfortable doing anything JavaScript, which React Native
Yeah,
falls in.
that's awesome. So I guess a takeaway there is that people should double down on their strengths. Like it's always good to learn new things, but then you could also capitalize on your existing strengths. So in this case, you were really good at JavaScript, so you just figured, okay, it wouldn't take much to extend that into the mobile world. So that's really awesome. Yeah. So I guess now we could probably go over the code. You could share your screen, and you could also just tell us about um,
Yeah.
how long it took, for example, and then what the project structure is like, and more.
Thanks, Master.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, then. All right. So I found the I found the design on my timeline. Yeah, so I decided to check it out, and then on seeing the Figma link, I decided to implement it. And then the whole implementation took me about maybe about 5 hours, so spread into 2 days because I have some other things doing. So I could I also implemented the home page
Mm-hmm.
and then the profile page.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, this here. So I scaffolded the project. So I scaffolded the project in a way that I can, in case I see any other design I want to quickly implement, I can quickly do that without having to start another project. And that is how the project is structured. Like I structured the project with that in mind also. So yeah, so let's go to the code base.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So in order to achieve this design, I use some libraries.
Okay.
So I use the React navigation and then React SVG transformer. So React navigation is used to manage the application routes. So that is, if you want to go from one screen to the other, you can use React navigation. There are other libraries too that you can check out too, but this is the official and like the official routing library supported by React Native. We also use React Native SVG transformer. So what this does is it lets you use SVG file directly in your mobile app the way you would use it in your web application. Because by default, the mobile app doesn't understand, the mobile app transformer doesn't understand the content of your SVG file. So this library makes that possible. Yeah, so those are the two major libraries that I used here. The rest of these dependencies here are the React navigation dependencies, like the reanimated for handling animation on your on iOS
Mm.
and other dependencies that need to share. Yeah, so for the folder structure, like I said earlier, structure, if you notice, the application is named Test Mobile App. So I set up the app such that if I see any other design that I so desire, to implement anytime, I can just quickly create a folder for it and then implement it. That's why I created a folder specifically for this app. I called it Coco. And then within the application, we have the index file, which is like the starting point of this particular application.
Okay.
Yeah, so in this application, I had imported this safe area view and then style sheet here. So what this does essentially, what the safe area view does is, there are some mobile apps that have this notch here. You
Mm-hmm.
get here, such things not available here. So you want to make sure that your application factor this into consideration when entering, and then you don't want to start implementing that from scratch because it appears differently on different devices. So safe area view, this area view takes care of that. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah. So here is the
Yeah, and just before we go further, I just want to comment that this looks really like, I like the fact that you're already thinking of a modular architecture, something that, sorry, reusable architecture, something that people can use, for different kinds of projects. And it's also nice, you're using a different IDE on WeDeyCode. We've been coding with Visual Studio Code. However, in this, you're using WebStorm. So I was just wondering if you could just briefly, describe the benefits of, a different kind of IDE like WebStorm for doing mobile development and front-end development.
okay. Yeah, so WebStorm is targeted at JavaScript application. You can use a WebStorm to develop any kind of JavaScript application, and then it provides, aside from that, it provides some benefits, like a lot of benefits to be honest. Like you can connect your database directly to this IDE. And then I think on Visual Studio, if you want to do React Native with Visual Studio, you have to start installing some plugins
Right.
to assist you with code linting and all those things. But with WebStorm, you have all those things by default. So with WebStorm now, you can attach a database view to your application. So let's say you are doing Node.js, you can attach your MongoDB view or your MySQL or whatever DB you are using. So you don't have to go to the CLI or you open PHP So from your ID, you can see your database and then you can use your command line here. I think Visual Studio has that too.
Nice.
And then you can push your code, within the view. You don't have to go to the CLI to commit changes. So I can add configuration to run my application. Like let's say before you run your application, you want to link it, or you want to fix some linting errors. You can just configure that here, and then on MacBook you have this shortcut key where you have so I wish I can show that now. Where you have one small play button that I can click to just quickly start your application. So there's a lot of advantage for me here. So that's why I just stick to WebStorm IDE, and then for PHP2 I use PHP Star.
Great.
So,
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So you could just continue with the app. I think app.js is what you're
yeah. So here after so from the index file here, after setting up our safe area view for the application, and then we imported it here in the app.js, which is like the entry point for the application. Like when your React Native project starts, this is where it's kind of it actually happens here in the index file, but in the index file imports and contents of the app.js file along with some other config in your app.json. So these are some other things that anybody that wants to learn React Native probably can check out from the official documentation. I think that covers more than I'll probably explain in the start shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from this app.js here, I imported the Cocoa app. So let's say I have another application I so desire to implement tomorrow. I can import that particular module here. Let's say I saw one finance app, and tomorrow I can just import one with finance here, and then continue with the project, and then maybe add some more navigation, and then have the sidebar displays, Cocoa, and finance demo, and so on and so forth. So somebody can just from one app you can see different implementation of the UIs, right? Yeah. So that is some thought. That was some thought process I put in mind, when implementing the user interface.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. So moving on to the Cocoa app project structure itself. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the entering point. So I'm using this bottom nav here, right? This nav here. This is the component here, and then I think let's go to the component of that bottom nav. So from there we'll see the rest of the file. So we go through them one by one. So because that's the navigation. So yeah, I have this folder here called navigation. So it handles anything that has to do with our project navigation. So because this application is not entirely big, it's not a full-fledged application. Here I'm just implementing the homepage and the profile, and then maybe the search feature, and then maybe the homepage. Or I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon. Yeah, so let's say I want to implement those screens. Each of those screens have will probably have different navigation. There's the bottom navigation, there's stack navigation where we can bounce from one page to the other, similar to what we have here. So if you check this out now, right? You have this home page, and then based on design, if you click on this particular tag here if you click on this particular article to continue reading, you shoot this screen. And the way you want to implement this is to use the stack React navigation stack.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a stack navigation somewhere here. But since we are not going deep down into that, since we are not going deep. But if you want to do that, you probably implement it that way, and then you don't want to use the bottom nav to implement such solutions.
Yeah.
Because that's like a new screen entirely. It doesn't have the bottom nav. From there you can maybe proceed to actually read the book, right? Where you now have this content, we are going deep down into
Mm-hmm.
into we are going deep down into the route. Yeah, so that's why you use searching.
Yeah. So
So that is why we have this folder here. So in case I want to go some other navigation, I can do that in that file. Yeah, you want to say something?
yeah, I was just gonna say, so like that means with stack navigation, every new page. So if people imagine like a stack of plates, every new page that the user goes to, it's like a new plate on top. And once they want to go back, we just keep removing the plates on top. So like that's what you mean, so
Yeah,
that they can eventually go back all the way to the beginning.
ex-
Okay.
exactly. Like that's the concept essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving on. So let's check the bottom tab. So I might want to expand this a little bit. Yeah, so here we import the other screens that we have implemented here. Yeah, so we have the home, search, bookmark, and then profile. So here I've only implemented the home and the profile screen. So we'll still go here to just see the dummy content that is there. So here I have the tabs configured in an array. So in this array we have an object called. So this is just what I'm doing here essentially is me just, creating a data structure to hold this button navigations here. You understand? Like, so we could have repeat this component here severally, to achieve this for for navigation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
rather than doing that, I just created this data structure here to hold objects for each of those for each of the screen. Yeah. So here I have the name property, which is holding name and the title value for the screen, and then the component that should be rendered when that particular screen is clicked. Also, I have the icon. So remember the transform this package that I was talking about earlier, the
Yeah.
React Native SV.
Yeah.
So here is where it comes into play. So yeah, I am importing the image directly here, right?
Okay.
This is the SVG for the okay. It doesn't have a color because I've removed the color. So I just added a white color here. So I've imported the image here. So React Native can just render that icon directly. However, I needed to remove the initial color set for the icon because the colors are set dynamically, based
Yeah.
on the state of the screen. Yeah. So here I I have this property icon, which is essentially was a function that has this parameters and the focused and then the color, the current color for the icon. So and then I repeated the same thing for the rest of for the rest of the screens. And then here I look through the array and then set the name of the current screen. I set the key because while looping through a component, you need to set this, the key
Yeah.
for that component for each component. And then I set the name, the component that should be rendered, and then I have the option here for tab icon. So this tab icon here is where we have this particular icon that returns a component that should be rendered. So here we are configuring based on based on the based on the screen state, maybe it is focused or not. You are setting the opacity of the color. You
Okay.
understand? Because this color here is shaded by 0.5
Okay.
according to the design,
Okay.
right? You want to achieve a pixel perfect design. You don't want to you want to try as much, to achieve what you are being given. So I had to, I had this here. But if we add, let's say we had, one here directly, you notice the change.
Yeah. It gets
You
darker.
notice the change exactly. So you want to achieve that based on the active states of the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yeah. So
also yeah,
yeah,
this is
do you want to?
also yeah, it's really good to see that you're following the best practice, like especially making sure that instead of repeating each component, you just put the you just create an array of these objects that represent the data that will just be rendered several times. So it's like it's perfect, like following best standards.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so here you notice I had set the active things color and then the inactive things color. So I have a place where I'd save the primary color, and the color is essentially for different usage. Yeah, so that I don't have to repeat myself across the screen. So I have here the primary color. So I think we are still going to touch that because I kind of used before. So let's just quickly use that. So let's check that out. So yeah, I have the primary color. This is essentially the cocoa primary color. I
Hmm.
have the secondary color, which is like the shade,
Yeah.
right? And then I have the primary text color, which is this text color here. I have the white color, the main inactive color,
Yeah.
and I have the primary font color, right? Say font color, the primary font used, which is this railway. So the essence of this primary font is, if you check the app, you notice that there are two different kind of fonts, right? There is this one which is used in almost everywhere in the application, so that's why I just called it primary. And there is this one here which is open source, so I intend to call this one secondary.
Okay.
Although I did not implement this stage, right?
Yeah.
But I just put in mind that just in case
Hmm.
I want to implement this page, I don't I so that I will have a way to save that particular font in a way that it is reusable,
Hmm.
right? So I don't have to be repeating the same font name over and over in case you just want to change the font name. You get.
Yeah. And just one
Yeah.
quick thing there, those colors, how did you because obviously the those color codes, how did you extract this from Figma for the sake of other people who want to learn this?
Yeah, so on Figma, you can click on this guy, for example, right? So you see that this is background color is there. So although
Okay.
this is saved in SVG, you can see the color is there. So there are different. Like if you click on, essentially, if you click on any element, on Figma, you can get their color. So the way I just get the color here in this case is I just click on this one. There are different shades of purple here. So you want
Yeah.
to have a place where you can get the actual color that you want. So here's the value here.
Okay.
Let's copy it, and I think if you right click here, you can. Yeah, so that is the essential issue. So you can get the color by clicking on an element, and then you can see the properties of that element. So you can see the size, you can see the color. If it is text, you can see the font and the size to and the color. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So going back to the bottom now. So I've covered this. So I think we should proceed to the home page, which is this guy here. Yeah. So on this home page here, we have a lot of moving components, but yeah. So we have then the header here, right? So this header here is representing this portion, from here, like this, is representing this one. So although if you want to implement this, in an actual, this is just a quick prototype, right? You probably have somebody's name called, let's say Polari, right? Right?
Hmm.
You don't want to, you can't add the dots manually, right?
Yeah.
So you want to a styling property, to do that. So I'm just trying to point that out here that even though I have, written the text here, that is because it's just a prototype. However, if the application is to be implemented, in production, you probably just want to use the appropriate styling property to do that. So I imported this is the image avatar here. Yeah. So moving on. So here is the category section. This category section here, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
then we have the bottom scroll here. So this so you asked of something the other time about moving from design to code. So the first thing I did was to check how this was implemented. Actually, when I saw this screen, I thought maybe the whole screen will probably move up, and then for some second I was like, okay, this is cool. So I checked the um, actual implementation. So you want to try as much to achieve what the designer has designed,
Yeah.
so that you guys can keep up, so that you guys can keep on being friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what we have here. So I want to achieve that. So that's why we have, and then you want to name things accordingly to, in case of anybody checking this out. So here we have the bottom scroll, which essentially represent this part of the application that is moving, right?
Yeah.
So within this part now we have some other things. So we have the banner. So we have this banner component here,
Okay.
which is the contributes, and then you have this section that has the continue reading, and then we have this part for navigating through within the screen. So this is the banner here, and then this is the section for continue reading, and then within that section for continue reading, this is the header title, the section title, and then we have this portion, this scroll portion for scrolling horizontally. Yes. And then we have this tabs, and we have this tabs section, right? So for this tab section, in the design, we have the section is not moving. However, you just instinctively know that okay, this section is meant to be clicked, so that the user can go to the next section, and they can probably possibly swipe. Yeah. So that was the thought process for this section, and then I think that covers that about this homepage. While implementing this homepage, I try as much to break things into smaller parts, so that because the way you structure your application, for me, let me just say, for me, the way I structure my application kind of determines how excited I am to come back to the application. I don't want to come back to an application that I'll start, thinking to figure things out.
Yeah.
I want to try to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
So I have the section. So if I come back to this code in 5 months' time, I'm excited to look at it. And then another thing is that sometimes you've implemented something somewhere, and then you want to do the same thing somewhere else. You don't want to start over and over again. You want to make it easy to copy what you have done, and then implement somewhere else. Yeah. So similar to what we have here, and the tab section here. And remember the navigation folder we have earlier. So this is the section powering these tabs that we have here. So the essence of this is, in case we have another place that uses tab, right? Just pass the configuration that we need to let that tab render.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. What you just described are, like perfect design patterns, clean code, it's because the reality is when you're working on, for listeners, everybody listening to this or watching this rather, what will happen is you might be working on some projects and you have to hand it off to someone else. And, for that person, anyone who's ever been in that situation where you get handed off some code base that is, poorly designed, the amount of headache that gets into it. And even if that person is you, like you said, 5 months down the line, you might want to come back to add something. and you find out, oh, it's even more difficult to edit it. So like it's really good to see those patterns.
Yeah, exactly. Because especially when it's the case where you just want to have fun while doing
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
So you imagine you want to have fun and then you need to start to figure out one thing that you did yourself, just like punishing yourself,
Yeah.
which is not too worth it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So moving forward, so here we have the screen, the tabs configured, the route for the tabs. And we have the key, and then the tab title, and then each key here represents the same. That's a term used for the tab. So each of this view here is the same. Although I am repeating the same view, right? However, we can just see it here.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing essentially, because from the design there's nothing much here, right? And then it's just a prototype. And then essentially anything that will probably be here will probably be the same, structure as this. Yeah. So I just implemented this here. So I have the tab card, right? So which is essentially this card, and then I essentially look through them from today's read. So I have a section, a file called static data stored in the API folder, which we'll check later on. So I pass the data down to the component that renders this particular card. And then this component right here, yeah, I repeated it for this same latest read and then the trending component.
Mhm.
So assuming we want to have something else here, it's just as simple as creating another component
Mhm.
and then replacing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's say we want to just enter a text here now. So I would expect that the hello section will then the latest tab will hello. Yeah. So it is as simple as that. So if something else comes up here now, in future and I want to implement it, just as simple as replacing whatever I have done, here. Yeah. So I think that essentially, covers this portion. Yeah. So for the categories here, for this category section here on the home page, I have this categories, saved in some. I have this category saved in some
Static data.
array. Yeah, static data. In there. I imagine this application like, okay, this category is to be coming back from the back end, right?
Exactly.
You expect the static data here, right? And then probably in future have them, scroll horizontally, right? Maybe you have more categories, right? So you want to have that in mind and then prepare your application in that direction.
Mhm.
So if it is fine, and then if it doesn't change also, that's super awesome. Yeah, so because everything is still good, you can easily adapt to change with this kind of architecture. So I believe that there are other, if you want to build a full-fledged app, there are probably other direction you probably go through because you consider things like Redux. Maybe you want to use some state management,
For
and
sure.
then so
Yeah.
you want to write, maybe a couple of things to be put into consideration, depending on what you are trying to achieve. Yeah. But I think this kind of practice will work in any kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the start, let's quickly check the static data because I kind of import it
Mhm.
in most of the pages. Yeah. So let's see what it contains. So in this static data, I call the folder API. So I just imagine that you are having a couple of API points here, returning some, data.
Yeah. Mhm.
So here I have the categories. Each of the categories hold the components, the icon components, right? And then I have the pending rates, right? Which holds this pending rates here. And so I think that's okay. Continue reading. Yeah, this one here. So I call the variable name and pending rates, right?
Right.
Yeah, because you want to continue reading, so it means that in pending mode. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just left it that way, and then I added the cover. I added this properties cover title of the progress that you are currently, this that's what determines this particular one. So if probably you increase this now, you expect that this increases, right? Yeah. So although these are static data, right? However, they kind of mirror what it would be like if it was working with some remote
With the server.
backend
Yeah.
data. Yeah. So that's it essentially with the so I have here to this read. So this section here, um, we have all these cards that are displayed here. So one of the reasons here I did this way is that you notice that the records are kind of similar, right? The record that you have here, right, are kind of similar records that we have here, just different rendering.
Yeah.
So you want to try as much not have yourself repeating
Correct. Yeah.
different components.
Yeah. To make it
Yeah,
modular.
so that is so that is about the static data file. Yeah, so I think that rounds up this on-page file. So here we have so here we have the tab section.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a route on its own, right? So imagine this like you can make this work in a way that although we have multiple routes here, right? So if you come back here and you have a device that have the add back button, if you are coming from here and you come here, you now click on back, you're expecting the back button to take you back to home page, right?
Yeah.
Not your home screen. So it's kind of work the same way with this, right? However, there are ways, to configure it to work that way. So if you're on trending now and you press back, you are expecting it to take you back to, let's say, maybe you're coming from latest or you're coming from today's week, right? So there are ways which you can configure that to work, right? But because we have multiple navigation here, you want to disable that to not confuse your users, right? So they don't know, so they don't get confused about which one is working for which.
Yeah.
So that's UX thing to consider here. However, we have these tabs here, for usability. You can see that there are a couple of a bunch of files here and configurations. So you don't want to, if you need another tab, this is something that you probably need somewhere else. Let's say you have in settings, this could change later on. You probably have continue reading and then you have another thing there. So you don't want to repeat this same configuration for that, for that step, right? So you just configure in such a way that you get the scenes, that is the component to be rendered, and then the tab route, that is these values here, right? And then you make some customization within the component itself, right? So I understand that probably not everybody watching the video would be coding React Native or something, but it's just a good thing to put it in mind when implementing the application, a way that you don't want to be repeating one huge configuration over and over.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not. I don't think it's a good practice.
Yeah, and even just to add to that quickly, like something else I've noticed is you've demonstrated this idea of separation of concerns. Like even the static data, some of the mistakes that many people make when starting up is they mix rendering of the UI with logic, with fetching data and all that. But you've been able to separate that as much as possible for even though like this is a light implementation, but you've still been able to separate the different the different aspects of it, and you're also estimating what would happen in the future. Like there would definitely be an API, in the future. If someone were to implement this, there would definitely be data coming in that will be updating everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really think, like it's something that, we should try as much to put in mind, as much as this is just like a side thing, like just to quickly implement the UI for fun. While having fun, you try as much to consider the best practice, you put them in mind, so that when you are implementing the actual real life application, that habit, follows you. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So moving forward to the next screen, which noted here. Yeah, so this is the profile screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so talking about separation of concerns, I for each of the screen I have an extra in each of the folder. I have an extra style.js file. So this style.js file essentially holds all the style for that particular screen. Right? So if you are looking for, and I tried as much to name the properties accordingly. So if you come here now, you see profile name, right? So the first thing that instinctively comes to your mind is this guy here,
Yeah.
right? So this property now holds the styling for this. You see profile email. This property holds the styling for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that there are some cases where you have generic styling. You can have text bold, or text opacity one. Those are good too. So you don't want to be repeating text font size and font weight
Mm-hmm.
600 in most places. We could have that. However, in this case, I just want to try as much to be descriptive,
Yeah.
as much as I can. Yeah, because I know I probably not touched this code base in a long time, and then maybe one day I remember that I've implemented this kind of thing while working on the Zikoko app UI. You get,
Mm-hmm.
so it could be
Mm-hmm.
something as simple as this seku here,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that I implemented something that looks like this somewhere. Let me jump and check how I implemented it. So now, if you name things wrongly here, or you
Yeah.
name things anywhere, by the time you get back here, you start wondering what is happening here. It could be even be this small progress bar that you are trying to just copy and reuse somewhere else. You
Yeah.
get, yeah. So yeah, so that's that. So for the home screen too, I have that style there. So it holds all the style for that particular screen. So each of the components have their own style in components. So when you are looking at shared components, you are seeing the style directly for that component. You get, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So since the styling for this component is not much, so
Yeah.
however, if it goes much, if the styling goes much, I would have created a folder for this article card, and then similar to what I did here,
Yeah.
and then have this. So when you are looking at this, you can directly see this style of what you are working with. Yeah. So I think that kind of rounds everything. That kind of round everything up. Yeah. So here we have the same data just repeated, in order to represent what we have on the UI. Yeah. So I think that's just it.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah, that's it.
that's really nice, and it was cool that, like, for many people, whoever is not familiar with React Native, Balogun was able to use React Native to run, and to develop and build for both Android and iOS. And of course, like, he can build for iOS because he's running a Mac OS, running on Mac. But for many people who use Windows, who might be using Linux, React Native is one of the ways to go to at least do some development for iOS as well, because that's one challenge many people face. They don't have, they might not have a MacBook, and they might feel like they can't do iOS development. But it's good you
Yeah.
demonstrated people can still do iOS development.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really, really, really nice to see that you've actually, you know, you've walked the talk. Many people, talk about design patterns, they talk about so, but like, even though this was a small app, just as you mentioned, you still put in the effort. You still made sure that where possible, you followed, best practices. And on that note, I'm wondering, are there any lessons learned, things that could be done differently some tips for anybody who's trying to get into this?
Yeah. To be honest, not too much learned because I didn't get the full fledged application. Most of what I did here, some knowledge I gained before now.
Okay.
Just using this. Yeah. However, talking about some things I would like to do, or advise anybody down to implement React Native to consider building the application in a modular way so that things can be reused as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And don't consider the next person, consider yourself too.
Yeah.
And then for us to, especially designers are probably just learning to design and then doing stuff and then posting on ETL, to be great if they attach the link to their aside the link to their Binance and what's the name of this other site, to the design, attach the link to the actual implementation. There could be one front end dev there or one mobile developer out there, also learning. They could just use that as challenge.
Mm-hmm.
They could just use that as a way to practice. Yeah, so that was
yeah, that's awesome. And where can people find you?
Yeah, on Twitter at 03 Balogun. I think on Twitter, yeah, on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then and you can check out my GitHub too. I have some cool projects. Yeah.
Okay.
I can check out 03 Balogun also on GitHub.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Balogun. This was very, very exciting, and I'm sure many people would have loved watching this, and they would also be inspired by what you've done to, carry on the flag and show everybody that WeDeyCode. So that's where we're going. So you started the first leg. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks for having me.
No worries. All right. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Yeah, have a nice day too.
Bye.